Our guest today is a problem we've had on the air before. Reed Olson is running for the House rep for 2A up in northern Minnesota, a unbelievably large House district in the northern part of the state. He is taking on a guy who, Duran, who's coming under some spotlight here because, well, basically a judge said the Minnesota GOP House candidate lied on search warrants as a Hubbard County Sheriff's deputy. We'll talk about his opponent and talk about the district with Reed. Reed, once again, as always, thank you. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, it's great to be back, Matt. Thanks a lot for having me on.
My pleasure. You're running again for this district. It was amazing to me that Stossel, the guy that was representing that district, who was, had his own personal issues, was continually elected up there. But the reality is that's not a district which is a slam dunk Republican district. It is a district that easily could go blue in any given election cycle.
It is. And, a lot of times in our district, it comes down to voter turnout when people turn out in Bemidji. And I'll just describe the district for a second. I live in Bemidji, and that's the southern part of the district. We go all the way up to the northwest angle. So all of Lake of the Woods County, about 3/4 of Beltrami County, and the northern half of Clearwater County, so Clearbrook and Gonvick and the areas around there. The whole Red Lake Reservation is in the district as well. When Red Lake turns out, when Bemidji turns out, the DFL wins, and when we don't, we don't. So it's pretty simple straight line there. We had fairly low turnout amongst Democrats in the district in 22, very high turnout amongst the Republicans in 22. So here we are again in a presidential year. We should see higher turnout, and I'm real hopeful that we will get our people out. Early voting has already started. I know I've already gone out and voted, and everybody out there should get out and vote early in case they get sick or there's a snowstorm or a flat tire or something on election day, to make sure you get your vote in and get it counted.
Well, and you bring up these issues. I mean, snowstorms in early November, that's a common thing up there, man. And even on the big lakes there, you can get lake effect snow even if it's not a snowstorm. So you definitely want to get out there, and if you can take advantage of this early, it's done, and it's a great way for you to be able to make your voice be heard.
Yeah. And a quick example of that, Nevada last cycle in 22, they were really slated to, the Democrats were going to lose the Senate seat, but they did a great job of working in the reservations and working in Vegas of getting the Democrats to get out and vote early. And on election day, there was a fluke snowstorm in Reno and a fluke rainstorm in Vegas. And election day turnout was really depressed, but since the Democrats had already gotten out and voted, it was largely the Republicans that stayed home, and they were able to keep a seat, and that's really what allowed the Dems to keep the majority in the U.S. Senate. So it is really important to get out. We have a wonderful opportunity to vote early in our state, and it's just important that we take advantage of it.
It's been an interesting election cycle. Obviously, the top of the ticket is the presidential race. We had a change in candidate. Talk a little bit about that. You also, by the way, have Amy Klobuchar on the ticket, who resonates well, says some of the best coattails in the Congress. Talk a little bit about that change and what you've been seeing up there, Bemidji, in the 2A district, when you're doing the door knocking, when you're going out and talking in these communities.
Well, yeah, I can definitely tell you that there's been a change in enthusiasm throughout the district. When I was knocking, back in June and early July, people just were not real excited. I mean, the stalwart said, yeah, I'm going to go and vote, but you didn't really feel a lot of excitement at the doors. After the debate and after Kamala was the heir apparent and Biden stepped down, there was a clear change in the enthusiasm at the doors. I just see a lot of enthusiasm generally throughout the district. I've been door knocking a lot in Lake of the Woods. There's a wonderful small town called Williams, about 20 minutes to the west of Baudette. 2 years ago, we couldn't get anyone to put a sign in their yard. They said, oh, my neighbors are Trumpers and they won't, I'll never hear the end of it. Or my in-laws are Trumpers, or my boss is a Republican and they don't know. So we had a lot of people in the area living in the closet as Democrats. And this year, going around knocking those same doors, talking to the same people, there's a lot more enthusiasm. People are tired of censoring themselves and tired of feeling bullied by by a vocal minority, and we have a lot more signs up there. A lot more people answering the doors, excited, knowing who I am because they voted for me last year and said, "Yep, you got our vote, Reed. Thanks a lot. Would you mind if I put a sign in your yard?" Absolutely. We got to let them know. I'm sick of censoring myself. Get a sign out there. So we're really making a lot of inroads, and I think we're going to see a lot better turnout this year, a lot more excitement. And I think that people know at the top of the ticket how important it is that we make sure that Trump does not get reelected to a fourth term or to a second term, 4-year term. So.
Well, and Klobuchar herself, I mean, one of the things which is it's a stymie for the Republicans and just proof of how bad their U.S. Senate candidate is, they know she does well in traditionally red areas, that she kind of is above it. It's one of the rare politicians that kind of, she does get a lot of Republicans voting for her. And it's been trouble every time that she runs. They just do not give her any real challenger because no one wants to go be that sacrificial lamb in that election. Royce White is an incredibly horrible candidate this time around. I don't know what the Republicans were thinking, but I imagine the impact of her being on the ticket with you, that's also helping out because, once again, it's not just the top of the ticket. It's that next race down, too, where you're getting a lot of, hey, yep, I'm getting out there.
Yep, no, that. I think you're absolutely right. I think that does help us a lot. But I would also say that there are a lot of people that are very excited about local candidates in our district. And so as much as there's going to be a top-down effect, I think that we local candidates are going to be bringing a lot of people to the ballots as well. And so there's going to be a bottom-up effect as well, that we're going to be bringing in extra votes for Walz and Kamala. We're going to be bringing in extra votes for Klobuchar. And I think that we're both going to be helping each other out. But I know in Red Lake, a lot of people are very driven by their county commissioner's race, by my race, and yes, they care about the top of the ticket, but they're much more locally oriented and really focusing on some of the more local races.
Well, and all politics is local, and you do have that. It's a nice addition to have the top of the race, but we got to focus. I want to focus on 2A. Obviously, these problems are starting to become too big to be ignored anymore. I want to talk about housing, and I want to talk about childcare, because these two issues everywhere, whether that's a metro area, urban core, out in the suburbs, out in the rural parts of the state, housing is a major problem, and affordable daycare options are a big problem. Talk about those issues, and then other issues that you are noticing that for 2A these are top of the mind things.
Yeah, it's great that you bring those up, because my three main priorities are housing, childcare, and rural access to mental health care. I was just at a forum Tuesday night with local healthcare, childcare providers, both childcare centers and home childcare providers, plus parents, and we were kind of talking about what solutions there may be moving forward. In Minnesota, this is a huge problem. The estimated fix of opposing conditions here, where it's really expensive for to pay for childcare if they can find a spot for their kiddos.
Yeah.
And then it is also childcare employees are some of the lowest paid workers in the state of Minnesota, and they are, taking care of our most precious cargo. So we need to. It's going to cost money at both ends of it. We need to help subsidize families so that a family with 3 kids aren't paying $40,000-$50,000 a year in childcare. But we also have to make sure that the workers are getting paid a decent living wage, and that they have access to health care, and that they have access to a high quality of life themselves. I think that the legislature estimates it's going to be about an $8 billion fix. They put about $1 billion towards it in the last biennium, but we still have a long ways to go. And we're going to have to make some tough choices and figure out how we're going to fund this. But as I was saying Tuesday, not taking care of this problem is even more expensive than addressing it.
Yes.
So if we can increase our work participation rate by getting high quality childcare to all of our families in Minnesota, that's going to increase our productivity. We're going to produce more. We're going to have a stronger economy, and then we'll be collecting more tax revenues that will then pay for the subsidies that we have to use to shore up the child care system. And I think that what we need to admit, and I think most people that know anything about it know this, is that the free market is not going to fix this. It is the market is broken when it comes to child care. And so it will take state intervention or state action at a state level. A lot of communities are trying to do what they can, but it's too big for small communities in rural Minnesota to try to figure this out. We need to do a comprehensive statewide plan to address our needs when it comes to child care.
You know, it's interesting to bring this. We had the Democrats take control. In 2023, we saw a lot of bills go past, a lot of good things get done by spending money and doing it. The Republicans have consistently said, it's going to destroy the economy. The tax revenues are going to go down. Actually, we just had another report. They went up again. We've got more money. By making a quality of life that everyone can appreciate, we're making an area where people are coming here because they can get affordable health care. They can get good jobs. They can get these things which people want. And we need to address this. I think that by getting the Democrats to maintain the House, getting you into the Minnesota House, putting forward these bills where you're getting these issues directed, the money is there, and the DFL has proven they're willing to spend the money if it's a worthwhile thing. And I think regardless of where you're at in this state, wherever, that the daycare is a massive issue that needs to be addressed. And I have hope that they can find some solution for it where the government does come on in and offer, whether it's tax breaks, incentives for daycare workers, incentives to expand daycare operations into other communities, whatever the case may be. But I think we definitely need, it will cost money, but it's like you said. I like how you said it. It's costing us more to ignore this problem than to fix this problem.
Yeah, and the answer is all of those. And my opponent was at the same forum, and he had said that he doesn't support raising taxes on corporations to pay for this because it's going to send our corporations fleeing the state. Now, if that were the case, they would already be down in Mississippi. But they come here. We have more Fortune 500 companies in Minnesota per capita than any other state in the union. They come here because of our investments that they make. They're happy to pay one of the highest corporate tax rates of any state in the union because we provide them with the most productive workforce in the country. We provide them with some of the best infrastructure to be able to do business. So they are not going to leave. They come here for our regime, not in spite of it, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So we are doing what they want by investing in childcare with tax dollars that we collect from them, because they do very well with our very productive workforce. And that starts with the kids. We need to invest in our kids. We need to invest in education. We need to make sure that they have stable housing so that they can succeed and that we can continue to have one of the best states in this union.
And your opponent's stupid argument basically comes down to this. They're going to protest a $50,000 tax increase by basically doing something which will incur millions of dollars worth of cost to move their company out of the. No, they're not. They're going to deal with it. Your lies are just stupid. Which brings up, if you don't mind, do you have any comments about your opponent? The story that was in the Minnesota Reformer yesterday that basically talked about Duran and his sketchy past, where a judge had to dress him down because he clearly it seemed to be fishing for a search warrant.
Mm-hmm. I think I'll leave it to the article, but I'll just say that I support our Constitution. Our Bill of Rights has protections in there for us, and we have to be careful. I work in the homeless sector. I run 2 homeless shelters in Bemidji. I see people that slip through the cracks of society, and how we treat the least of us or people that are least favorable, that is a canary in the coal mine, So we have these protections not because of who we are as a nation, because of who our values are, what our values are, and supporting our Fourth Amendment protections against warrantless search and seizure is very important. Something I hold dear. So I guess I will leave it at that and say that it does help draw a real clear distinction between who we are as people philosophically. I am out there trying to improve the quality of life of all of my neighbors, and that's what I will continue to do. That's why my priorities are building more housing, trying to address the child care crisis, and expanding access to rural health care, especially mental health care, because those are the things that are affecting the quality of life of my neighbors, and I want to improve our quality of life.
Well, and I'll go both ways on this, because not only you don't want a police officer to basically target someone just because they want to target somebody without cause, but when you do actually have a crime that's committed, because you ham-handedly dealt with this, you might have actually let criminals go, and because so. It's rotten on both sides. It basically undermines people's rights. But in the case where you do actually have a criminal you've caught because you just didn't know what you were freaking doing, you let a criminal get away. You can't have it. Both sides are bad on that, and that's why your opponent is a bad choice. If you don't mind me asking, one last thing, I want to get to policy, because I'm so glad you brought up mental health issues. There is still this massive gap of mental health service providers and the needs that there is out there, especially in rural Minnesota. There, you talk about putting forward initiatives. There are a lot of things we can do. I've talked about this issue for many years about helping to cover the costs of the periods where these counselors and therapists are having to spend their own money to basically get their licenses, and it's a real inhibitive, and it's really costly, and it slows things down. There are a lot of things we can do. What are some of the issues that you want to see addressed when you're in the Minnesota House that you can basically help bring that to rural Minnesota?
Well, one of the things I think that we can do, and there are some programs like this in education, and I believe that there are in the medical arena, but we have incredibly talented kids that live in rural Minnesota. They do really great in school, and then they go off to post-secondary and get great degrees, and then move to urban centers to practice law or medicine. I think we need to have some incentives to try to get our kids to come back home, and maybe have a program where, if you work for 5 years in a low-income community or in a rural community, then we'll help offset your education expenses or
Absolutely.
Something like that. But we have to find some tools. I mean, I'll take Lake of the Woods as an example, and it's not just mental health care; it's also other just health care that is disappearing up there. You can't have, they don't have a birth center. You have to go to Roseau or to Bemidji to have a child. There's less and less amenities for people that want to age in place. There's no senior homes, assisted living homes. So people have to, again, go to East Grand Forks or Duluth or somewhere far away for their final years. We need to reinvest in rural Minnesota. Rural Minnesota is a great place. It should be thriving. We've got great economies that we can support, but we have to do what we can to retain our population. Because what we're doing right now is just kind of creating an urban flight. And so then we see the metro growing and growing, and then a hollowing out of the countryside. And that's just economically, that's not real sound. And a lot of people have to move. I mean, you could almost see them as internally displaced people, that are leaving their hometowns in search of better paying jobs. And part of this, I think, is corporate consolidation. It's consolidation of farms. There's a lot of things that we can do to help restore the family farm, to help return the corner drugstore or the corner hardware store. But that takes action at the federal level, I think, to break up the large corporations a little bit. But there's a lot we can do. Anybody that lives in, I don't want to leave northern Minnesota. I love living here, and I would hate to have to leave out of economic necessity. But so we just have to remember that, rural Minnesota is about half the population, and about half of the money that we have, the revenues that we have, should be invested in rural Minnesota, and we can bring back a thriving.
And it's not just rural Minnesota. You have the same problems in the cities too. I mean, it's the plan that you put forward, and there are countries where they've done this and they've had wild success. Where exactly what you said, 5 years, you go out there and you work in Bemidji for 5 years. You're going to get some people that stick around after that, but you do that, you commit to that, and then all of a sudden your advanced degree is covered. It's not just like a free state. We'll get your advanced degree covered. You can absolutely have success with this, and that's why there are a lot of countries where even in the rural communities you have full medical centers and you have mental health facilities and child care centers. You have these things. You just have to do it smart and just the constant the beating of the drum by Republicans of the private sector will do it. Well, the private sector is failing to do it. And we need to have the government intercede because you're right. It's getting to a point where everything is geared towards a handful of wealthy, large corporate farmers, corporate businesses at the expense of everyone else. And we've seen what this has done to rural Minnesota. And there is no good quality path back unless you vote for the DFL. Now, here's one thing you and I have always talked about. Your district is massive. This is one of these districts when I bring in Reed, you need donations just because the gas to get around your district is quite, it's pricey. You're doing a lot of driving. You need to make a donation, but you also need volunteers to get up there. I imagine you have a lot of communities you still have yet to door knock, correct?
Yes, we sure do. And we would love to get some volunteers. If anyone's looking to have a fun weekend this fall, watch the fall colors and come up and hit some doors with us. Go to my website. It's votereedolson.com. And there's options to donate or to volunteer. We'd love to have you. We will be doing a lot of door knocking yet. We're really trying to push the early vote right now, trying to help people get to the polls early so that we can log those votes now and not have to worry about them on Election Day. But, yeah, there is still a tremendous amount to be done. About 5 weeks left, 40 days or so. We can't do it without your support. And one thing to the contributions, one of the reasons why I like coming onto your show and being able to talk to the Metro is we have a lot of poverty in our district, and it's hard to just fundraise from my neighbors because we don't have a whole lot of money, and so we do need support. So if you come from a solid blue district where you know that your state rep is going to win with 80% of the vote, they probably don't need a huge donation from you. So maybe you could spread it around and send some of it up here and help us. I really think that when we win this seat this year, we will be able to show rural Minnesota and northern Minnesota that the DFL will deliver to them as we did in the past. And this is going to kind of be our wedge seat to start reclaiming the North for the DFL. But we have to win in one seat and start growing it. And I think we have a wonderful opportunity this year to do that, but we can't do it without your help.
As you said, help your local guy by all means. But if you're in a relatively safe district, send a few dollars up there, help out Reed Olson, get up there, volunteer. You're not going to win these seats by just thinking about it. You need to get up there and be active with this. And I've had Reed on. Reed is one of these guys that we desperately need his expertise and his passion for his district in St. Paul. We need that. They are not being serviced by what they've been sent down here. And the only way you change that paradigm is by sending people up there, door knocking, and giving him donations and getting him there. So what are you doing to make the blue wave happen? That's the question I'm going to ask. What are you doing? I got a great candidate in Reed Olson. That's where you need to go. And by the way, we do need to say, it's vote Reed Olson. It's Olson with an O. O-L-S-O-N. VOTEREED OLSON.com. I'll link to everything a little bit later on. Reed, all my best up there. I hope to see you in St. Paul. Good luck, and thank you very much. I really appreciate all the time today.
Yeah, thank you for your time, Matt. It's a pleasure to be on the show again, and I hope to come back maybe after the election. We can have a celebration on your show. I
would love to have you back. I would love to have you back representative at that point. So votereedolson.com, votereedolson.com. We'll take a break. Come on back. We're way behind. It is the Matt McNeil Show here on your Thursday.
I'm out here 1,000